Don't know what he looks like, but he just too tough.
He's right there. Now you know.
Now I know.
Excuse me. If I can get everyone's attention for a moment. First of all, thank you all for coming down. It's a fabulous show. Thank you to Jamie. Thank Chloe, and Isabel, and Trista, and Jamie for getting all of this set up. It's really kind of, I love the way the gallery feels with this show, and I'm excited. I know a lot of you have questions for Jamie and kind of what this is all about, and so I wanted to introduce Jamie Burmeister.
And I want to thank also, of course, everyone here at Kiechel has been great. They've done a great job getting the show together, and they were dealing with me so that I'm not always the easiest to deal with. But, I got a few people I have to thank too. So my wife Kelly, of course, I couldn't do anything without her. So she's here for Kelly, right? And my father's here, my brother, and my nephew, and my aunt. And I've got a lot of family here. They're all helpful. Caitlin Daigle, she's had her hand in all that. She's my studio manager, so she's been helping make all this stuff. So I want to thank those people. But I think maybe the best way is to just take some questions. If you guys have some questions, otherwise I could drone on about my stuff up here. But no one wants to hear that. So you guys have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm reading about hope, kind of hope is a motivator for this.
Yes.
And there's just so much uniqueness.
Yes. Well, I think, I like the idea of hope just kind of came to me here in the last couple of months where, we all have hope. It's kind of an emotion, but it's also like kind of a thought or whatever. So I was just thinking in my own life, like, you got something going on and you can be hopeful about what's going on, or you could worry about what's going on. And like being hopeful is like a positive thing, and worrying is like stressful and anxiety provoking. So anyway, it was just that was kind of something that had come to me. So as far as the humor goes and hope, I think like all of this stuff is like very introspective. So I'm kind of analyzing my experience of what's going on around me, and I find just a lot of absurdity in a lot of the things that I do and the things that I think, and so that's like where a lot of this stuff comes from, and I think some of the humor kind of comes from that, so I'm analyzing like why I do what I do, and sometimes it doesn't make logical sense, but I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of some of my thoughts on that anyway.
Talk about the
Okay, so the Burman, the small figures started in 2008, and I had these starlings in the eaves of my studio, and they were squawking and pooping, and my first instinct was, I gotta get them out of here, right? Gotta get these things out of here, and then you see them, and they've got their little babies, and they're just living their life, and I'm starting to empathize with them, and I'm thinking, I can't keep these things out of here because they're just doing their thing, just like I'm trying to do. So that was the original inspiration for making the little figures, and I started to model these figures out of clay. At the time in my art practice, I was doing a lot of big like public art projects, and I was doing a lot of like art installations. And so there was a lot of computer work and a lot of managing and not a lot of working with my hands. And so that was a way for me to go back, start working with my hands. I started making them, started installing them in the nooks and crannies of my shows and stuff. And then at some point, social media started to become a thing, and I thought, oh, this would be a good thing for art. So I started this project called Vermin.me, where we made about 10,000 of the little ceramic figures, and we used social media to spread them all over the world, so people would kind of go and request them, and I'd give them to them or send them to them, and then they would take them to all kinds of places all over the world. They were installed in, we had over 1,000 installations, 46 countries, 6 continents, all the U.S. states, so it was kind of a really fun project. At a certain point, it kind of didn't become sustainable. So anyway, those figures began to evolve, and at first they were lumpy little handmade things, and then I started to make molds, so I could make multiples, and then they started to be different ages and sexes and all that. As they evolved, at some point, scanning and 3D printing technologies became available, and so I developed a scanner that I could scan people, and then I started printing them, and so we started printing them, and then after they're printed, then we go to more of a traditional lost wax process to make the final bronzes. So that's the evolution of the Burman. Yeah.
Many of these have an observer.
Yes.
Did you say something about that?
Yeah. Well, I think that there are a couple things. So some of these, they're kind of, I would say these pieces are kind of self-portraits. And so there are different, we take different places in, so like if you're building something, you have the person working, but then you also have the boss who's watching, or maybe you have someone else that's helping. So I think like that interaction is interesting,
So are you the worker or the observer?
I think I'm all of it, or maybe I'm observing someone else that is playing that role, right? But I think that those interactions and sort of mundane things like that is something I'm pretty interested in. Yeah. It's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions or? Yeah.
What inspired your color palette?
In the title is what color is hope. I am a novice at working with colors, so I'm a sculptor, and I've got a lot of experience making 3D forms and like making objects and composition and lots of the elements of art. But color has been something that I didn't use a lot, because when you're building sculpture, like color is more powerful than form, right? So if there's a bright color, you see the color, you don't always see the form. So I haven't used it a lot. So all this work is sort of me experimenting with what color is and what it means and what it can do. And I think what I figured out for myself is I'm really drawn towards colors that sort of bounce off of each other and contrast with each other. And I do a lot of research, and there are colors that they call I'm going to forget what the word is, but it's basically colors that don't go together. I kind of like those colors together. So I don't know if that's I don't know if I'm doing it right, but this is kind of what came out. So not that there is a right or wrong, but I'm following my intuition and just trying things and letting it go where it goes. So work in progress. Any other? Yeah.
It's right behind you. How do you keep going blind?
Your eyes get crossed. It's tedious. So it's multiple sessions. We use it's like a bottle that's got a kind of a syringe on the end, so you squeeze the bottle, and little blobs come out of the end of the shrimp. When I first started doing those, I would use, use a brush, and you'd have to dip it back and forth, and then I was working with an assistant that worked at art supply places. So like, let me get some of these. We'll try these out. So that was a good innovation for that. Yeah. You guys have any other thoughts or questions or comments? I was telling someone earlier that I've read many times that you're supposed to have, like, if you have a business, you're supposed to have a mission statement, right? And so a while ago, I began thinking, gosh, wow, I don't even know what my mission statement is, but my mission statement is to make people smile. So that's kind of what the overarching goal of this activity is. So
Success.
good, thank you.
And we recently hired to teach that.
Yeah.
How was your artwork evolved over from 2 decades ago to now?
With the teaching so I went to, I have some history here in Lincoln. I went to UNL. I got an MFA, Master of Fine Arts in Sculpture, and I graduated in 2005. And I came out as a sculptor. Immediately, I got this job at Metropolitan Community College teaching sculpture, 3D design, jewelry, 4D design, and ceramics, and I taught drawing. I taught all this stuff, right? So I had, when you teach, that's when you really figure out how things work. Because when you got to teach someone else how to do something, you got to figure it out yourself. So I learned a lot through teaching. I got to work with all this different media. I got to figure out how to run a studio. I think the evolution has been coming out of graduate school. My work was very conceptual and installation based, and I did a lot of kinetic, interactive work. I think this work has evolved. I think I'm still dealing with the same ideas, but I sort of honed in on these figures, and this has been a nice outlet to making objects that can go out and live in the world and not just be something that I set up for a month or whatever and then tear it down and then sits in my studio for 10 years and end up throwing it in the dumpster later. So I've enjoyed having work that goes out and lives in the world. Yeah. Any other questions or
Where's your dumpster?
Where's the dumpster? I'll tell you where the next one is.
You said you started with 3D sculpture,
Yeah.
and then you kind of evolved into looking at the colors and everything. My question is, what do you see in the future? Do you see seeing them merge and bring the colors into your 3D sculpture, or?
Yeah, I think we got in the studio right now. We've got this aluminum sculpture. I was gonna actually try and get it together for this show, but it didn't happen. And I'm reluctant. So I've got this piece where it's a bunch of these boxes that stack up, 8 or 10 foot tall, and kind of relate to this piece here. But it's like pulling teeth for me to want to put colors on those. It's
I can understand that.
yeah. So it's I don't know if I can do it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm thinking more of it being sort of a surface change. It's still the aluminum. I'm still got a lot of sculpture in me, and it's hard for me to go full color on a sculpture like that. So yeah. Thank you.
Well, Jamie will be around. We can answer any of your questions. We have the other 2 floors open. Second floor.